This is Crew Tales, Life in the Circus. In the motion picture world, there are an army of dedicated professionals who work behind the scenes to make the movies and shows we watch today. I'm Brad Hodson, and I've spent over 30 years in the motion picture industry. This podcast celebrates the people who make the magic behind the scenes. Welcome to the circus. Today we are pleased to have Miss Vava Renata.
Thank you.
Vava, you are a props master.
Yes, I am indeed.
Excellent. In your words, what does a props master do?
Well, we start off on prep. And then we get the script, break it down, and basically anything an actor interacts and touches, that's props. So we'll break down a script from beginning to end and see what the actor will need, not just what the script provides, but also we have to kind of go out of the box and figure out what else can we add to this character.
So that implies tracking down all these bits and pieces.
Yes.
How do you go about doing that? And where do you find these bits? Props are considered one end to the other, what a prop can be, right?
Yes. So a prop can be anything. So it can be a pencil, it can be a glass, it can be food, it can be anything. And you're tracking it down. We're fortunate enough in Vancouver, there's a lot of rental houses here. So we can either rent from them or we can buy it or we can even build the props. It all depends. The more extravagant the budget is, the more extravagant the props get, the more extravagant the bills get. And that's the fun part.
The bills, of course. Describe your journey to have gotten to this position in your career. How did you get to become a props master?
Well, I've been in the industry for 15 years. I've been a props master for about 10 years. And I actually started off in my previous life. I used to do graphic design and web design. And I used to do that freelance and I used to do it at home a lot. And then a friend of mine said, well, why don't you just go in film and be a background? You could take your computer there. And I got there and I was looking at everybody's saying, oh, I could do that. And I know I was one of those annoying background that I would go up and ask crew, well, what's your job? What do you do? And then I started off in set deck as a set dresser. And then I met someone who told me, hey, do you want to come and design a film for me? And it was a low budget short. And I production designed a film called 5 Minute Rush. And I loved it. And but then with that, I started off I did a couple more design jobs. Then I went into doing decorating and then props. And props actually just fell in my lap.
Wow.
Yeah. And somebody had that I worked with on a commercial as a costume designer, because I did that as well. As a costume designer, recommended me to be a props master on the show. And I had no idea. I had no idea. I got the script and I even asked a friend of mine, well, how do you do a budget for props? And they couldn't help me. So I figured I learned everything on my own and I figured it out on my own.
Oh, yeah. Good for you. So you got the script, You read the script, you're going to break it down as to what props are definitely needed. And then some that may be needed. Where do you go from there? I assume you buy the props or acquire the props, but they need to be shown to other people, I assume.
Yeah. So from the breakdown, once you do your breakdown, I'll basically go coordinate with the production designer because I'm sure with what I like when they give me free range. So I'll coordinate with the production designer to see what his color story is, what set decorated color stories are, and if my props would work with their design. And then from there, because my rule of thumb is don't give them more than 3 options because then most of the time they can't make a decision. So, and then from there, I'll go and he will narrow it down and then we'll go talk to the director and see what his feedback is. And I always like to have a meeting ahead of time because I don't like to do the work 3 times.
No.
Because sometimes the director don't have time for us. And then we're going in one direction and then he's got something else in his mind. And then we have to start all over again. So if he doesn't like what we've done. So I always try to get ahead of time, get to talk to the director, make sure we're on the same track and then show him my ideas. But I also love when they tell me, hey, Vava, go for it. This is what I want. You do your thing. And I'm on heaven when they say that.
Right. Are some movies harder than others?
Oh, yeah.
I guess period pieces would be tougher than modern day.
I prefer period pieces, but that to me is not hard. What I find what is hard for me is the people. Because some directors could be really easy to work with and EPs, and some are not. So you have a hard time pinning them down, a hard time giving them for them giving you direction. and saying, hey, this is what I want, because most of them don't even know what they want. So it's hard for you to guess what they want. So I find the hardest part for me is dealing with the egos.
Right.
Then, like for period pieces, I'm on heaven if I get to do a period piece. Yeah,
Wow.
because I know I could acquire those, because
Right.
there's so many different places where in Vancouver where you can acquire your items.
Right. You don't work alone either. You have a department.
Yeah, I have a
So,
crew.
yeah, can you describe some of those positions and the description of some of those positions in the properties department?
So so from the props master, I'll have an assistant props master, and that person could be in office and on set. So for on a bigger show, you'd have the prop master, assistant props master, truck person, coordinator, and a buyer. And but on the smaller shows, which we do a lot of here, I have assistant who also slash truck, and then I have an on set, which is a key person that's on set. So they're there for the wants and needs,
Right.
and they would show the props and have the props ready for on the day.
So it's an ongoing process. Just even when the project is up and running and you're shooting,
Mhm.
I assume that as the head property master, you're still working and moving around.
Mhm.
Changes happen all the time.
All
in
the
film?
time, all the time. Even if a director said he doesn't like something, you always still kind of have a backup, because on the day he's like, oh, I don't like how it looks on camera. It doesn't look great. So I always have some kind of a backup,
Right.
and always be prepared a step ahead.
Right.
I always try to have extra items there, so at least in that way, when they have their creative juices, that we have something extra for them.
Right. Now, this has been a bit of a bone of contention the last few years in the industry, sadly, but firearms fall into your
Yeah.
position as well. I'd like to hear some of your thoughts on, without getting into the ugliness or nitty gritty, but describe how firearms plays a role in props and how it's treated differently or similarly than other props.
Well, first off, firearms. Well, it is a huge deal here with us, because we do deal with a lot of firearms. We have great armorers here, that we'll get our firearms from. Falcon Enterprises for one of them, and it is a yes, and especially coming what happened just recently, we're looked at differently now too by having firearms, but you have to have, there's so many protocols. First off, live firearms and live ammunition never come to set. So we normally get our firearms from Falcon Enterprises, and the chamber is always blocked. So you cannot put a cartridge in there no matter what anyways. So you'll get your firearm. You always have it in your safe until it's actually needed at 7. It's never, ever left out in open. Well, because we actually take it seriously in Canada. So you never have these live firearms open on set, open on your cart, and nobody should be taking it off your cart. So it would stay in your safe on the trailer, or on your truck, and then once it's needed to set, then you bring it into a lock case, and then the person who has their PAL, who has their firearm license, will take it to set and will be on set with it. Or you get an armor in there, especially if they want a blank firing system, or if they want dummy fires, then we'll always bring a armorer in. Or if it's, or try to convince the directors you don't need, because there's so many ways to not have to just show that something is firing. There's a lot of it can be done in post. You don't need bullets on set at all whatsoever.
Right. So in the old days, it would be dummy rounds or
Yeah.
whatnot. But
But now you can do everything in post.
yeah.
Yeah.
And airsoft guns.
Mhm.
Can you tell me a little bit about airsoft guns?
Well, I'm still not I'd rather not have anything that fires on set.
Right.
So
Right.
for me personally, if this one show that we were doing, and they wanted it fired on set, and I said, okay, sure. If you want something fired on set, then by all means, we're gonna have an armorer, because we're not gonna be responsible for it. And then they turn around and say, well, what will it make for us not to have an armorer? Say, well, first off, I'll have the chamber blocked, and if you want to have the cartridge go into the chamber, you can only have it go in a little bit of the way, and then you'll have to cut it, and then you're going to have the squibs on the other end. But otherwise, it's not going to be fired.
Right.
So we'll still have a police person on that set, and then I was there to show them how to put the cartridge right into the chamber, because we were using a Winchester rifle, and we had to put they wanted the scene where one of the bullets was going into the chamber. So it went in part. You could only see the tip go in, and then they cut it. So because the chamber is blocked, you can't put anything in there. So, and I also showed the police that we shined a flashlight down the barrel, that you can't, that it was a blocked chamber. So we do take it seriously here, and it is unfortunate some incidences happen.
Myself as a camera operator, I'm pleased that there is a protocol, and every time I've worked with firearms on a film set, for one, even the props person comes up and shows me that for a rehearsal, it's rubber, and they'll bend it in front of you. And then when it comes time to perhaps a gun being pointed my direction, they come over to our entire department and open it up and say, this is not an operating gun. So I've been seeing these protocols for years, and they work. And hats off to the department that does that. I'm glad we do have that in place.
Yeah, no, it's because we try as much as we can to ease everyone in it. And if we can use rubbers, by all means, let's just take advantage of using the rubbers. Why have an airsoft there? Why have, you can have the replicas there too, but why have anything that can have a projectile come out? You don't need any of that stuff. All that can be done in post.
Right. Now, one of the most important questions that I think you've been asked all the time is, where does wardrobe end and props begin?
Well, I can even go further saying, where does set deck end and props begin, and where does a PAN and props begin? Okay, well, first off, I'll talk about a PA and props, because that's our biggest thorn in our side is our chairs.
Oh, production assistant.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Director chairs. I'm like, why?
But that's been historical, hasn't it? No, but historically, the director's chairs are a props department.
No.
Really? Okay.
Never.
I stand
it was
corrected.
Always locations, and it's only BC that does it.
Really?
Only, and we've been trying to. We just don't get it. I just don't understand. It's like, and especially when you have a small department, and especially when you have a small props team, and you have all these props. And then you've got somebody yelling at you for chairs and somebody yelling at you for props. I'm like, okay, pick your battles. What do you want? Props or chairs? I mean, seriously, why? I don't understand, why does that have to be props? Because we're already overwhelmed. Yeah, locations, they've got their work to do as well too. But I don't understand why that has to be put under props.
Right.
When especially we have to be there for blocking. We have to be there for this. And there was even times when the chairs are left outside and we're trying to get the props in, and locations move the tents and the chairs are getting wet.
I've been on shows where there's been 15 or 20 directors' chairs out.
Yeah.
So I could see it would be a lot of...
That's a thorn in our side. So yeah, we want to get rid of that.
Okay, well, we don't have to dwell on that one. Clearly, it's a point of contention. But where does it stop and begin between props and set deck, for example? Okay,
so this is dressing. Basically, everything that's already in your set, that's dressing. And then this is a prop because the actor touches it and the actor interacts with it. The food, the actor interacts, your pen, your laptop. This is actually a prop.
Okay.
Even though we're not touching it, but we're using it.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about my clothing?
That's wardrobe.
Okay.
But.
Okay, there's a but, yeah.
But, okay, so say if you have a badge on, if you have a name tag on, that's a prop.
A purse.
A purse is sometimes. It all depends on the costume designer.
Oh.
Sometimes I would ask the costume designer from the beginning, hey, do you want us to do purses, or do you want to, because sometimes they get very picky on it, that they want it to match the clothes, and they're afraid that props doesn't bring really nice purses in. But I always try to make sure I touch base with costumes first and say, hey, do you want to do purses, or do you want us to do it? And most of the times they say, hey, if you guys don't mind doing it, we'll do it. A hat, a baseball hat is a costume. A helmet is a prop.
Holy moly.
A cowboy hat sometimes would be a prop.
Wedding bands.
Prop.
Yep, I've seen that before. Where
a watch is a prop.
Right.
A necklace is a costume, unless they specifically have them making the necklace or making the specific pendant becomes a prop.
Oh, okay. That's a pretty fine line.
But
oh wait, there's more buts. Okay.
I came from a show from Winnipeg, and we were so prepared as props to do helmets. But in Winnipeg, they did the fireman helmets. So I think it's a line.
Huh. Depending on the region, you mean?
Yeah, depending on the region now too. Yeah.
And what's available in the region.
Mm-hmm.
So, Vava, you must have some interesting stories being in the props department over the years. Do you
Yeah.
have any you'd like to share with us?
There's this one show that we all actually loved working on, was called Buddy Games 2, and was Josh Duhamel was the director and our number one cast. He was amazing to work with. First off, he gave me free reign to do anything I want, and we had a lot of bills, and that's one thing I really love doing, and I really miss doing is the bills.
Can you describe a build, please?
So basically, if there's something we can't make it. We can't rent and we can't buy. We have to make it. So, for instance, we had to do they wanted elaborate bicycles. So I came up with a few designs. So I asked them to pinpoint exactly how many bikes they want in total. So we got to 6 bikes. So we had to come up with some crazy Burning Man style bikes. And so I had all of them with lights on them. And I did one with a mammoth. I don't know if I could say this on the thing. Penis bike.
Okay. It was a prop, so you can say penis.
Penis bike, boob bike, a giraffe, a unicorn, and lights. So they were all elaborate. And the mammoth was our favorite. And he just gave me free range to come up with all the designs, and they were gorgeous. And you could see those bikes on that show. And we also had there was a scene where they wanted to eat the pet chicken. And I thought it was kind of weird. Like, they had the chicken, and why would you eat their pet chicken? And so he even actually phoned me one weekend to say, "Vav, I changed the script because you were really upset about this pet chicken being eaten, so I changed it to pet skunk." And I'm like, okay, it's not easier, but all right, we could do. So we got a fake skunk built on a spit, and there was another scene where I had to make a big hand that comes out and slap him in the face. And then I was joking, and he said to me, "Vav, can you just test a hand on me?" And I was even joking to someone, it's like, I finally get a wish to hit a director. And that was, so I took the hand to smack him on the face with it to see how the reaction was. So yeah, that was one of the best shows. And we used a few firearms on that show as well too. We had, a SIG that we brought onto the show, and they wanted it fired, and that was all done in post. And we did the exact same thing, brought everything out in the case on the day. And we had two other ones. We had a revolver on that one that was supposed to fire. Again, that was done in post, and a Derringer that fell on the floor, but that didn't fire. But yeah, so that was one of the best shows I worked on because it was fun. I got to be as creative as I want. And they gave me a lot of free range.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Speaking of roasting skunks, food is part of props as well, right?
Mm-hmm, yes.
So I've been on shows where there's been party scenes, and all that is a prop. So talk a little bit about food and drink as well. It's considered the props.
So food and drinks are considered props on the show. So which is especially if you're doing a big party scene, we try. Well, most of it is you end up having a lot of wastage. So that's unfortunate. That's an unfortunate scene in the industry where a lot of the food goes to waste because you're redoing the scene so many times. And you can't have, especially if somebody's eating it, you're going to have to make sure everything is food safe. So you have to have your food safe certificate as well for props. So you all depends on how many, especially for resets, how many resets you have, and how, if somebody's eating, then you have to make sure everything is put back in the same way, the way how it started off. And so you have a lot of continuity that you have to keep track of when it comes to food. It's not easy doing food scenes. Yeah.
And do some spoiler alert. When you're watching, I've worked on a lot of shows and there's bar scenes. Clearly there's not liquor like beer and wine. No. So give us a spoiler alert.
Okay,
what do you use?
So there's the fake beer. We use a lot of the fake beer. And before, when we have a smaller budget, we'll use, we'll have to kind of concoct a kind of wine look. But if we have a bigger budget, we'll just normally get the fake wine. And even ginger ale. And something Alka-Seltzer. And if it's getting too fuzzy, if it's going flat, you put Alka-Seltzer in, and right. it gets the fuzz coming back up.
Right.
Yeah.
When I watch movies, I'm always critical because of what I do. Sometimes I'll see red wine, it'll be like, that's definitely cranberry juice. Yeah. And that bugs me. When you watch movies, which I'm sure you do, and you critique them from your perspective, what's a pet peeve for you in movies?
Well, I actually know what I do actually notice is when it rains. like one scene, like one cut, you will get, you like, even set deck, you will see something moved as well. But when it rains and you see a wet spot on their shirt, and I always look to see when they do the turnaround, if that wet spot is there and it's gone. So I always look for stuff like that. And set deck, if something is moved and is not in the right places, I like, say if a rug got, the corners of a rug got turned over when he walked by, and when he stops at a certain point and it's still turned over, and then you turn around.
I have another question for you.
Okay.
Sensitive, cigarette smoking, pot smoking, and cocaine snorting is a props department, isn't it? I don't mean off hours. I mean on the show.
Sure.
How's that done?
Okay, so with the cigarettes, especially if somebody doesn't smoke, we always use herbal cigarettes, and then pot. Thyme. I can't pronounce that word.
Thyme.
Okay. That would be in the roll joint.
Oh, okay.
And and vitamin D, crushed up vitamin D for cocaine.
No way.
Yeah.
And you don't like sneeze or get all.
You kind of gives you a little bit of a buzz. But not.
I know what I'm doing later.
Like an energy buzz. But what we do, like you could even like say if you're going to do a dollar bill, you put Vaseline or like a little bit of oil in there. So when you snort it up, most of that gets stuck to that. Oh. Or even a straw. Try to get some oil down the straw. Yeah.
That's something I actually didn't know. I was curious about that. Interesting. Any other stories about props you want to share with us?
Well, I could do the more of this one show that we worked on. I'm not even going to name the name because it was a horrible show, but it was a lot of drug use, and we had to learn what drug items, especially with some things I didn't even know. What's a quill? It's not a writing. It's some kind of drug term as well. Damn. Too. I'm like, some of the stuff we couldn't even figure out what it was, and what is crack cocaine, how it looks, and what do they do, and the pipes, and it was an interesting show. If anybody could look at our web browser and props, it'd be interesting. We'd be in jail.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah.
What advice do you have to people who literally say are thinking about becoming a props person or something in that?
I mean, stick with it. I mean, props, it's not as easy as everybody thinks it is. You need your food safe, you need WMIS, you need your firearms license. So it takes time to get it and then you need to go get to the motion picture safety awareness. So it's not just something you could just kind of walk into. You have to have all these certificates. And I mean, it's a great department. If you can build, even better. If you know how to do some builds, it's better, because that's another way to get into the department, is be a builder on the side. So you don't have to come into, so we can always hire you out as well.
And I guess one of the funnest jobs in the props department is being a buyer, right? Spending someone else's money all day. And
being a buyer. Oh my goodness, spend somebody's money all day, or she go crazy. And especially when they give you a credit card.
Oh my, it'd be dangerous.
Credit card with sometimes no limit.
Endless vitamin D, right?
Yeah. Sure.
Vava, what do you do when you're not working? What are some of your other interests?
Well, I do love to build as well. So I have a 3D printer and a resin printer. So I do my own little builds, and I like outdoors, and I do like guns as well. Okay. I do collect antiques, and I do have a few vintage firearms.
Oh, wow.
And prohibs that I do have my license for.
Of course. Yeah. Well, it's part of your job. Mm-hmm. Do you go to the range?
I like the outdoor range. I cannot handle an indoor range. Yeah. No, it's to me, I get migraines, and I can't, last time I went there, I had one person on each side shooting off a shotgun. I think I lasted like a couple of minutes because and I had earplugs, everything in, and I'm like, no,
right.
I can't do the indoor ranges. No.
Fair enough. And if people want to see some of your work, do you have a site they can go to?
Yeah, it's not updated, but it's just my name, vavarenata.ca. I think.
Well, I'm sure an IMDb or a Google, we can do that.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, Vava, thank you so much for being on the Circus.
Well, thank you for having me. It was fun. It was really nice talking to you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Well, that about wraps it up for another episode of Crew Tales, Life in the Circus. I'd like to thank our producers Dustin Schwannard and Dustin Girton, as well as our technical producer Rob Hunt. I'm Brad Hodson. Thank you for joining us.